to Mexico, sunny Mexico. With this, we've got Jim and Fabio, as usual. Hopefully some more guests later. And yeah, it's been a fantastic week. Brand new circuit to talk about. And what did everybody think? Good race, bad race, indifferent?
Dum 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 dum. I thought what they've done with the circuit was absolutely fantastic. They should do that at a lot more circuits. Silverstone really missed a trick not thinking of that when they redesigned the start-finish line. I thought entering into the sort of baseball stadium idea was just amazing, and the crowd when Sergio Perez drove in front of his home fans was just amazing. I thought, and having Parc Ferme in front of the stadium as well was fantastic.
I have no idea, guys, what you're talking about. I honestly don't know why we're having an anger. What was there a race on Sunday?
Dry your eyes.
Oh, fuck's sake! No, the track was brilliant. I was, to be honest, I was kind of disappointed by the race.
Why is that, Ferrari fan Fabio?
No. It's not because of that. That is the reason why I haven't really watched the race. The reason I'm disappointed is that the times on Saturday were so close. So I was honestly expecting a closer race, and that for some reason it just didn't happen. I mean, all the drivers were really closer. If you watch the timing and the qualification times, they were way closer. So I was expecting it to be a little more feisty, but yeah, I mean, it was a good race. Yeah.
Well, the Circuit of the Americas this week. If you thought the rain was bad over the race weekend last weekend, did you see the pictures of what happened to the circuit last weekend? It was under like 12 feet of torrential rainwater. It was up to the level of the bridge.
Yeah.
Amazing. But yeah, I know what you mean. The times were closer in free practice, and qualifying looked like it was going to be a lot closer. But kudos to Nico Rosberg. He drove a good race. He really did win it. I think Lewis was pushing him and he couldn't catch, which is good.
Yeah.
But it was a shame for Ferrari, really. I mean, especially Vettel. He did everything that he could, but when you get a puncture on the first lap, it's never going to end well.
Yeah, and also I don't know really what happened, because I honestly didn't read too much of the race, but it seems to be that Sebastian wasn't feeling well. I think he was the only one with the jacket on the track. I mean, he wasn't feeling that well. But I think that when you make a season where you push every race, it might just happen, that you have an unlucky race. So. Yeah, but can I just give my vote for coolest man ever to Kimi?
How so?
Because the way he replied after the race to the people asking him, "Yeah, what do you think about the accident with Bottas?" I mean, that guy is brilliant. I mean. Is the best ever. They were asking him, "Oh, do you think you made it on purpose?" And he didn't even reply. It's snickered. He's like, yeah. What you can see about that, it is the best. I think it's just the best.
Well, I mean, he obviously, Bottas obviously did do it on purpose in that he tried to go around the outside. You know what I mean? With the new rules in F1, you would expect that to work. I.e., Kimi definitely should have given him room at the apex. And I think it's just Kimi's an old-style racer, and he doesn't get that things have changed.
Yeah, but the fact that it just didn't throw hissy fit, it was just I know. Yeah.
I like Bottas's one as well. I like Bottas's one as well.
I think Kimi said at a certain point, he said, "Well, that was expected to be happening."
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But I mean, apart from that, good to see Williams competitive. I don't think it was a lucky third place. I think he drove for it and he had the car for it. Who was it that actually gave Vettel the original puncture on the first lap? Was it Ricciardo?
Ricciardo, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Red Bull had an okay race. We might talk in a bit about what they're going to do for an engine. Because
Yeah,
there was a
just
story
keep on
today
the.
that yeah, but we'll say with the rest for now. But there was a story today that they might use an unbranded Renault engine, whatever the one of those is.
Yeah, it's just a Renault engine, a customer Renault engine at full spec,
Yeah. Well,
basically.
the
But
owner of Red Bull, I read that either they find an engine by, I don't know if it's this weekend or the next race, or it won't race next year. So it does come to that.
yeah, okay. So back to Mexico. I've
Yeah.
got I've got a few complaints here. Right, number one, if you don't let the track settle and use it a few times at least before the F1 cars go on, you're never going to get a race with overtaking. Number two, they've destroyed the track, and all they've done basically, as I can see, with the stadium section, is just put a really slow corner in, which isn't helping the exit onto the straight, and that's why we won't get an overtaking at the end of the straight, right? Because of the stadium section, which is exactly the same thing as Indianapolis, and we stayed at Indianapolis as few years as possible because of it. They refused to change the track because the last corner was too slow for the wing settings, right?
Well,
And you're down to the same deal.
I actually watched it live on NBC because I have an account to watch American TV channels on my Raspberry Pi. Because I don't have Sky Sports F1 anymore. I got rid of Sky Television because it was too expensive. So I watched it on the internet, and it was live on NBC. And the American commentary team that were, obviously working for NBC were absolutely flipping out. I mean, they were literally saying if Formula One was more like this, it would become a lot bigger in the States, because the stadium thing really gave it that extra thing. I think as a spectacle, as a show, as an event,
Yeah, I agree.
think they have improved the circuit.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying about taking out the high speed corners and everything. But it can't all they can't all be Spa.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. It's this Tilke thing, right? Let's
Yeah.
get into the heart of it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan, okay, and mainly because he's made mistakes at circuits, as far as I can see, like Indianapolis. And my chief point with Indianapolis is if you put a really slow corner into what is effectively a high speed circuit, okay, you are tying the hands of behind the back teams, because they have to put enough downforce on to get through those corners.
Yeah. And not even
That's
necessarily
just
the back markers. I mean, we saw it with Red Bull and Force India, who are back markers at the moment, I know, but they're sort of more competitive in the long run, really. Yeah, fair point. But like I say, breaking into the American TV market is really important for getting the cash coming into Formula One, and I think overall the changes they made to the circuit were really, really great. We're back in Mexico.
Yeah. I just think, like with Indianapolis, I couldn't wait to leave.
I think that,
What could have been a great circuit. I mean, it could have been a fantastic circuit with
No,
really high
I think it's-
speeds and the
I
backing
think-
and everything.
No, I
But
disagree. I
no.
think it's up there. It's up there. I disagree. I mean, come on, Singapore, this miserable, boring circuit.
Yes, but then Sochi, is a good circuit.
Yeah,
It's
but
good fun to drive, and they say the same thing about Singapore. If it wasn't so bumpy, it would be a good circuit to drive.
Yeah, but didn't Herman Tilke do Sochi as well?
well,
He
they,
did,
they
yes.
had good circuits. I mean, Valencia, if you remember, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Now it's a wasteland. I've been there recently. There's literally nothing. It's all rotten and going down.
Okay, you're cutting out, Fabio.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's still got the same metallic sound.
Yeah, my connection sucks. Let me see if I turn the camera off. Let's see if it's any better. I was talking about there's some good circuits. I mean, Valencia was a good one.
Mhm.
But now it's just in shambles. I've been there recently, and it's all abandoned and rotten. So I think that the main problem with F1 is that they really go where the money is, and we just
Yeah.
only have to hope that the people building circuits are good enough. Unfortunately, it's the same old guy every fucking circuit. It's Dilke, for
Yeah.
fuck's
Yeah.
sake.
Yeah.
So I've heard some guys from Ferrari saying that they were they was trying to set up the car in advance according to the fact that it was a Tilke circuit. Now it's a
Yeah.
thing, it's a Tilke circuit, and that honestly they're terrible. I don't know why that guy keeps building circuits, but the, they're all the same. You can't possibly overtake. It's a real mess. I don't know what's wrong with that guy, but
Yeah, but it don't forget it's about having logos visible on the screen as well. It's all about camera angles. It's a spectator sport. It's a TV spectator sport primarily.
it's all
And
that. Yeah, you're right.
Well,
It's only that.
some of the circuits. I mean, we've got to say. I mean, I have to say that the Austin circuit. I kept calling it Dallas last week, so many apologies for that. But the Austin circuit, it's a fantastic circuit. There's no doubt. But one thing it doesn't have is these, ridiculously mid-pace or slow corners for which you have to have some modicum of downforce. Okay, he's just avoided that. And with the elevation changes, it makes it a really spectacular circuit with all the views, as Jim's saying. So there's no reason why that can't be done other than, they're fitting the circuit to, narrow parcels of land. The areas that are determined have to be so large that they just cripple the circuit straight away because there's not enough runoff or the safety factors. So that's what's killing it. I mean, it's okay when you go to a brand new place like Austin and you've got as much space as you want and runoff areas is not a problem. You just design a circuit. The same thing at Turkey. I mean, what a great circuit. Yeah, the fact it was built on the cheap, okay, doesn't help. But nonetheless, the track layout is fantastic.
It is fantastic, but I mean, there are no places
It's
to.
Fabio, I'm sorry to
Yeah,
stop you, but you're still breaking up for me.
yeah,
Jim, is it?
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
You might want to rejoin.
yeah. Okay, I'll be right back.
It sounds like a connection thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought Lewis handled coming second really brilliantly. He just had it written on his face like, yeah, well, I'm still world champion. Whereas
Yeah.
Rosberg sometimes doesn't even bother turning up for the team photo. Lewis was sitting there with a beaming smile on his face, and everything's fine, and just spraying the champagne.
Yeah. I was in a hangout the other day, and I do feel sorry for Rosberg because I rate him very highly as a team member.
Yeah.
I don't think Mercedes would be where they are without Rosberg's testing prowess.
How many
So,
years was
I-
he teammates with Michael Schumacher?
I think it was 2 years with Schumacher, and he was there the year before. So I think he's been there 5 years.
Right, so he was with Barrichello before Schumacher came back for a season.
I think Schumacher did 2 seasons. This is from memory, so I could be wrong, Jim. But yeah, he's been there quite a while. I mean, since the beginning of Mercedes, anyway.
I mean, I poke fun at the guy, but there's no doubt he's a great racer. It's his off-track stuff that he needs to work on more. I mean, he needs to roll with the punches a lot more. He carries the defeats with him. It's written on his face. He says things he shouldn't say about the press and everything, and blames everyone other than himself. You can sort of,
Although,
his teammates with
you know,
Lewis Hamilton. It's got to be difficult. It's Prost Senna all over again, isn't it?
well, it is becoming that way with Bottas and Raikkonen falling out. It's becoming more feisty like the old days. Let's just say that because we haven't had any real pit lane rivalries for quite a few years now. Not in terms of real grudges.
I actually
So
think
that's quite exciting.
there could be more of a grudge between Raikkonen and Bottas than there is between Lewis and Rosberg, actually.
It's building. A few more crashes, and yep, we're there. But I mean, I think Raikkonen was completely wrong. I mean, and then to come out afterwards and say, "I'll do it again." That's just like, well, all right, mate, whatever.
But yeah, but it's Raikkonen though. I kind of like that about him because he's just fuck you.
Oh,
I'm an
man.
Iceman. I'll do what I want. It's kind of okay. Whereas
Yeah,
when you
sorry,
get that
Jim.
sort of bravado from how Vettel used to be at Red Bull, for example,
Hmm.
it sort of grinds a little bit. I actually don't mind Vettel being full of bravado now that he's at Ferrari, because he's clearly so much happier, and he's had a really surprisingly competitive season. I don't mind it so much when he's joking on in the press conferences and stuff, but no, it's I think Raikkonen's allowed to do that.
But I think a couple of hangouts ago we were talking about Verstappen not being contritious after an accident.
Yeah, but I mean, he's 9 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I said he shouldn't be, and I guess I would have to, on that basis, agree with you about Raikkonen. So fair enough.
Verstappen's worrying about his GCSE homework.
I think he's worrying about how he's going to be spending his millions.
He just got a driving license, for fuck's sake. I mean, his father used to drive him on the track, Now he's got a driving license, and the happiest guy was his father saying, "Yeah, now I don't have to drive him, to the races."
How brilliant is that? Because I mean, he's so impressive, isn't he? Really. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not that he's just a fast driver. He is aware on the track of where the other cars are, where they're going to be, which
well,
is
he
what
is
you need to be a
impressive, but
great racing
I
driver.
I think there is a difference, and I honestly don't know where he is right now. There is a difference between being a fast driver and a driver which wins championship. It's a different mindset. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, you can be brave in a couple of races, and go really, full throttle. But winning a championship is something different. I think
Yeah.
the mindset is totally different.
Hmm. Yep, I wouldn't agree. Can we just talk about Ferrari failed to finish with two cars for the first time in
Yeah, that was a
about
bummer.
3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, that was a
Yeah. Is
bummer.
there any reason? Are they just old engines? Is it because they stress their engines too highly, and at that altitude they're more
So
likely to go wrong?
you talk about Ferrari?
Yeah,
Well, no, I mean they both crashed.
right.
So no, I don't think the engine had nothing to do with that.
Mm.
Sebastian, ran into the barriers, and and Kimi had some things to sort out with Bottas. So I mean they both finished with the car total.
Yeah.
So
It just seemed a very strange. It seemed very, very strange to me because Raikkonen had that off in at turn 7 in the free practice, and Vettel had his first off at the same turn. Pretty much identical.
well, yeah, I mean, but honestly, there's really nothing you can do. I mean, if someone decides to drive you, to drive into
Sure.
you,
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with Raikkonen. Yeah, I'm just pointing out that turn 7. There seemed to be a problem with the back end
well, turn
stepping
seven,
out.
I think that Kimi actually, he gave some space to Bottas. It was just that Bottas was committed to overtake him in that corner and that corner only. And
Oh yeah.
the the thing which disturbed me a little bit was it wasn't like when Kimi ran into Bottas and it was wrong. I mean, there were few laps from the end, so they were fighting for a position. Bottas had better tires, and he had a faster car, and I think just after that corner or a few corners after that, there is the stretch where you can open the DRS. So it could have easily overtaken without any problems. Easily. He just made up his mind and said, you know what, the fuck it ain't gonna pass in this corner.
There was quite a few drivers that were getting a light rear end on turn 7 though. It wasn't just the Ferraris.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't notice any of the others, but yeah, you're probably right actually.
They had a lot of problems with the tarmac. I think Simon said it, talked about it a little bit before. It seems to be it was too fresh, and there was oil coming up.
Well, yeah, and
Also,
one of the support races had a massive diesel spill as well. There was a Porsche
yeah,
Cup race, and
Oh yeah.
and also
Again.
they had a lot of. Well, I think by Sunday they pretty much sorted that out, but they had a lot of problems with downforce because of the air is less dense over there. And if you could see, actually, it was really interesting. If you could go watch and see some pictures over there, it was really cool how the cars were. They had the rear so much higher than the front. They were
Yeah.
actually diving,
Mm.
and I read that the reason because of that is that they wanted the biggest amount of air possible go through the back because the air is not as thick as it usually is, so they could regain a little bit of downforce. But in order to do that, they had to let up more air pass through the rear than it usually does because
Yeah. You could really see that on the Red Bulls. Kvyat and Ricciardo had a really high rake.
yeah.
But let's talk about McLaren because things went even worse for them than they already were. Like that, we even thought that was even possible. I mean, they were down there with
Yeah.
Marussia. It was just and then the radio
Yeah,
message
it's-
came for Alonso to come in the pits, and it was like, oh no.
That was funny. I loved Alonso's interview when he just said, "Oh yeah, well, we were always coming in on lap 2 because we knew we couldn't get past lap 1."
Oh no.
And it's like, oh yeah, that's fine. But you would expect it. We know they've got ERS problems and what have you. Energy recovery problems. So,
But as a British fan of Formula One, Lewis notwithstanding, McLaren is the team we all really want to see doing well alongside Williams, and it's going to be fucking 4 or 5 seasons before they're even.
yeah, well, we've been here before with McLaren. That's all I'll say.
How long were they in the
Michael
wilderness before the days of Coulthard and not Heikki Kovalainen,
Probably
Finnish guy,
about
what's he called? Triple world champion.
Hakkinen, Mika Hakkinen.
Mika Hakkinen, yeah.
Probably about 4 or 5 years.
Hmm.
I mean, they were. It took a long time. They were pootling around at the back for 2 seasons in 14th. So. But they say this is the longest period that they've been like this. But I remember McLaren not. After Senna left.
Jensen had a 50-place grid penalty. What's
Oh no,
that all about?
70.
Was it 70? Oh well, that's even.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. I just thought, well, at least he's got a record this year that's not going to be broken in a hurry.
Dear on.
70 places. Oh, Bernie, get your shit together.
It was a shame that Sergio Perez couldn't have a podium, I think, because obviously he was over the moon to be finally racing in his home country again. He did really well. Nico Hung.
That was
on fine.
Yeah, that was strange. That was strange to me that they didn't pit him in the last safety car.
Yeah, did they not?
Everybody else,
Because
everybody else was
He was
pitting.
5th or 6th, wasn't he?
Yeah, he could have been up there.
Didn't see much of the Saubers.
No. Again, I think this is one of the things about it is the stress on the engines. Right, so when you get to because the turbos are such high revving pieces of equipment, when you go to that altitude, you're trying to get even more revs out of them, and I think those cars that are at the limit or close to reliability problems, that's the issue. So they just turned everything down to make it through the race. I noticed in free practice 1 and 2, I think Mercedes literally just concentrated on race setup. They hardly did any qualifying setup.
So the interesting
first
thing
two free
about
practices.
the interesting thing about that then is that it's the engines. It's the actual combustion engine part of the hybrid engine which struggles at altitude.
Yeah.
So the teams that were slower, it was to do with the traditional engine rather than the electric boost that they get from the.
Well,
I
they
think it's
have
to do with the turbo.
they have turbo engines, so they didn't suffer as much as you would expect that to be suffering. You could regain a lot of pressure with the turbo. So actually, I've heard that they didn't lose as much power as they thought they were going to lose, and
Oh, right.
they had all other sort of problems, aerodynamic problems, brakes problems, for fuck's sake.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
brilliant. I mean, yeah. When Nico had his literally his wheels on fire. I mean, that was bloody brilliant. And also it was really cool to me to see. I think it was on Saturday. You could actually see they showed on TV some mechanics. They were opening new holes in the fairing of the Red Bull by hand. They had
Yeah.
rotary tools and stuff like that.
Wow.
That I loved. I would say, yeah, that it was this is what's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Figure shit out at the very last minute. It was really great. That was something that I haven't seen in ages. Doing actually working on the car. Modifying the car on the track was really cool.
Mm. I mean, if that's the kind of thing you're into, sort of from an engineering point of view, WEC is a really interesting series to watch because they have to, I mean, it's a 24-hour. Well, most of them are endurance races.
Yeah. No, I know. It's that's the pinnacle of fixing shit up, on the garage. Yeah.
Lewis got to the front of the grid at one point. He seemed to think that he had grip left in his tyres, and there was a call from the pits saying, "Look, this is a team order. You need to come in for safety reasons."
Yeah.
Did we find out if that came from Pirelli or if it was just Mercedes' own data?
Well, I'm pretty sure it's Mercedes.
Yeah, I don't think Pirelli had nothing to do with that, honestly.
Also, I think Mercedes just decided with both cars, more than a pit stop ahead, we'll pit them both.
Funnily enough, all the teams made up their minds to change the strategy after Vettel pitted in, and he went out with the other tires, and so they all saw that the times with the other tires were not as bad as they were thinking. I think that at the beginning,
medium,
most of the strategies were to make only one stop, so they were supposed to be running with the softer tires way longer than almost anybody did. But once Sebastian pitted in, they had a good reference point to see what were the actual timing, and Sebastian actually was driving really fast with those tires. So I think that changed the strategies of almost all the teams.
Yep.
And McLaren, first. So yeah, but it was funny. Yeah. Anyway, I don't think Lewis wanted actually to pit in.
No, I mean that's why I asked, because
he didn't. No.
If anyone knows what kind of performance they've got left in the tyres, it's the driver on the track. Mm-hmm. And Lewis wasn't going to stay out just because he could. He obviously clearly felt that he had another couple of laps on those tyres, if not all the way to the end if he was conservative.
Yeah, I think it was just precaution by Mercedes in that instance to pit both cars because they had such a lead.
Yeah,
I think that was the tactical point. I think by making Lewis come in, they were just trying not to disadvantage Nico for what is a safety decision and not necessary for the race. I think if they'd been close competition, they wouldn't have done it. One thing I just want to say quickly, I thought what Nico did was brilliant in the race, in that for the first pit stop, he left it so long that he knew Lewis couldn't respond after he pitted for a lap because he wouldn't have any tyres left.
Yeah,
and that's the first time that's happened, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant by Nico.
I think they had some data about the tarmac and the tires at the beginning of the race, so they were going for the most prudent way, to make it the biggest stint you could do. I mean, the tarmac, wasn't really sticky, so what they at the beginning what they were thinking to do was, to go as long as you go with the softer tires, because they they were thinking that they will last a lot, and actually I think they were going to last a lot, but they were not that much, confident on the medium tires, because they thought probably that the asphalt wasn't as sticky enough. So they just went with the strategy, one pit stop, and then what happens. But when they saw the timing, the time that Sebastian made, I think they all switched from for a more normal race strategy. I mean, you start with softer, and then you go with medium tires, and then you get softer for the end. And I think the only one which went with the original plan was actually was Perez, if I'm not mistaken. So that might.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that might also explain why it didn't went as well as we were hoping to. I mean, one of my kids is a big fan of Perez for no reason at all. It was all over the moon because of Perez, but yeah.
Sorry, I was just eating a donut. Yes.
Jim.
Now, which suggests then, because the last person who wanted to come off because of tyre reliability was Perez. It was his own race, so that would suggest others could have done the same.
I think they just told him safety reasons, because they couldn't tell him on the radio, you got to change the tires, fuck off. Well, we're paying your salary, come in and change the tires. I don't think,
Well, I think Nico would have gone absolutely apeshit if he'd found out afterwards that he could not have pitted.
Well, he actually told the guys after he pitted. He said, let me know if those tires were good enough, for some more laps.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the first message, would be safety, and he didn't get that. Lewis didn't hear that and go, "Oh right, they're going to pit both cars. Okay, hammer time and all the rest of it." Instead, I can win the race.
No,
that wasn't the point.
I think he knew that they'd brought Rosberg in. I just felt.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He just thought that he had better tyre management than Nico did. But I mean, it's probably just a little bit of bravado for the benefit of the team radio, because he was leading the race, and so you never know.
The results of the fact, I think that once they figure out that a more conventional strategy was going to work, if you're Mercedes, you really don't want your drivers to have different strategies, because God forbid if someone wins and tells, yeah, because you made me follow a different strategy than the other one. I mean, that would have been catastrophic. Yeah. So
I think Nico would have been a bit upset about if he'd been made to pit for safety reasons and Lewis hadn't. But I think the other thing is Lewis said afterwards, well, because there was a safety car, I would have lost anyway if I'd done that. In fact, it would have been worse. So, as it turns out, it was the right thing to do. Again, the thing for me was the fact that Nico pushed his tyres right to the end, which didn't allow Lewis to put in quick laps when he went in for a pit stop.
Yeah, but
that was the key moment in the race that won Nico the race.
Yeah, but still, I think Nico was ahead, so they changed the tyres. So
but Nico has to pit first, right?
No, yes, Nico had to pit first, and the team.
I'm talking about the first pit stop now.
Yes.
By the way.
But Lewis had to follow Nico's strategy. Can you imagine what would have happened if Lewis won because he made one less pit stop than Nico? I mean. The last races, they were throwing themselves, hats. They would have probably thrown themselves, the
Fabio,
World Cup,
Yeah, but Fabio, the only reason they made that second pit stop, okay, they could have got to the end perfectly okay, right? But the only reason they made the pit stop literally for safety reasons, to make sure they didn't run out of rubber near the end and get overtaken.
That's
okay, so and the only reason they could do that is because they had a 30-second lead over the second place man, or third place man rather.
Yeah.
So if they hadn't have had 30 seconds, they wouldn't have pitted.
No, yeah, I mean that's what I mean. That I wouldn't give too much credit to the safety reasons that we heard on radio. I mean, they just tell safety reasons because they didn't want to have a discussion on the radio, on national
Yeah.
television.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I agree. I agree
yeah.
in that respect. But they wouldn't have pitted if they didn't have the lead in the race that they
No,
did.
no, yeah, no, I agree,
So,
agree.
and as I say, so back to the first pit stop, it was Lewis, it was Nico's point to push Lewis's tyres. So when Nico pitted, Lewis couldn't put in a fast lap or two.
Well, yeah, but it didn't stop the first time. They had to call in twice, to stop.
Well, the first time, right, when the race was still under, the second pit stop for Mercedes didn't need to happen, right? If they hadn't have had a lead of 30 seconds, they wouldn't have done it. So they
Yeah,
just
no,
would
no,
have
yeah,
had the
no, no,
one
no.
pit stop.
I understand. I was
Okay.
just saying that. My point is that once Nico made the decision, or his
Yeah,
engineers made the
absolutely.
decision, Lewis had to follow the very exact same strategy.
Yeah, I don't think it was Lewis's. I don't think it was Nico's engineers that made the decision. I think it was, Lauder and Wolf that went, no, both cars are going to pit because we have a 30-second lead.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean,
So it assures the 1-2, basically. They're on fresh tyres, they're in front of the pack. If a safety car comes out, they don't have to pit because they're on fresh tyres. So that's just precaution for the team to make sure they get a 1-2. And they're not interested as to who wins. I mean, yeah, okay, they're happy to they both want them to pit, or they want them both to pit, because then they're not advantaging one driver over another on a strategy. So that would be unfair. So they had to make them pit both. But the first pit stop is where Nico won the race. That's what I'm saying. He won the race by pushing Lewis's tyres. Yeah, and if he hadn't have done that, then gone in the pit, Lewis would have put in several fast laps, yeah, and then pitted himself and come out either close or in the lead with fresher tyres. And that's the strategy that Nico was fighting. So he had to push his medium tyres. He had to push his soft tyres right to the end and hope that Lewis didn't have enough rubber left to put in some fast laps after, which is exactly what happened. The laps that Lewis put in, the lap that Lewis put in after Nico pitted was like a second slower than Nico's last lap.
so okay, this is the the really stupid question. How much do you think that in Mercedes they are? Well, I don't think that Lewis let Nico win. I don't think that for a second. But do you think that there is some, well, I wouldn't say strategy, but some underlying, commitment to have, Nico win, more races up until the end of the year?
I know, I don't. I really don't. I think the pressure's off Nico, and he's driving better because he's
That's
not
it,
a great
yeah.
pressure driver.
That's right. Yeah. I think if he, like I said earlier on, if he could drive without the demons on his shoulder, he would be an even better driver than he already is. But he carries it around with him too much. When he puts pressure on himself.
No, yeah, no, I understand. That's what I'm saying. Just what I'm saying is that that do you think it's too far fetched to figure out that they might set up things so that he might have a slight advantage, just to keep him happy, till the end of the season.
I watched the highlights package on the BBC, and the commentary team were even saying that it's all very well having Mercedes dominant, but Petronas and some of their other big sponsors don't get an awful lot of screen time when they're just right out in front.
Yeah.
So it could be conceivable that in the upper echelons of Mercedes, Toto Wolff, Niki Lauda et al., that they've said, well, maybe it wouldn't be such a bad thing if, Lewis doesn't need the points anymore. Maybe it wouldn't be such a bad thing if we favoured Rosberg a little bit, because he's clearly quick in qualifying. He's been quickest in qualifying again this season as he was last.
Yep.
You
No. That was exactly my point. I mean, it would serve two purposes actually. To have more interesting race, and also to keep the second driver a little bit more happy than it was last week. I mean, they already signed for next year, so they got to live with that. And it would be suicidal to get to the beginning of the season with two drivers already fighting each other from the get-go.
I personally don't see it that way myself. I think Nico didn't make a mistake, and that's what won him the race, like
Right.
it usually does win him the race, because generally he's a more consistent driver. Maybe not as fast, but certainly he's really consistent lap to lap. So but for me, they're really close. I'm disappointed in some ways. I think if Lewis had been bigging up Nico a little more, I think it would stand to make his championship seem more valuable.
Yep.
Nico's, again, I always remember when Nico first became a test driver in Formula One, even before he got a drive, everybody used to praise him in the teams because he was such a great test driver. They used to say he would go out and put lap after lap in within a tenth of a second, and then you could put a piece on the car, and he would go out and he would find out what that piece was. Yeah.
Keep in mind that there is
That's
a
pretty
mass.
impressive.
Oh, sorry.
Go on, carry on.
No, I was saying that keep in mind that there is a massive difference between a good test driver and a driver which can win the championship.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just pointing out one
Yeah.
thing that Nico is very good at. He is a good race driver as well.
Yeah.
Maybe not
No,
such a great
you're right. I
overtaker
mean,
as Lewis or some of the others, but one of his key strengths is being able to feel the car. And
a good
you know,
test driver might not be as fast as a championship driver, but you could get more data out of it. There is a funny thing, for example, I remember.
Sorry, just need to interrupt there, guys. Sorry, I need to go because I've got someone coming around to look at something that I need fixing.
okay, mate.
But if we can do this again real soon, obviously, after maybe
Next
even
race.
before and after the next race, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Of course.
Good chatting again. See you soon.
take care, man.
Thanks, Jim. Take
Bye
care.
now.
If anybody is watching out there, besides me and Fabio, there are two viewers, please
No,
use the join link if you can
Watching,
get it.
so there is at least one viewer because I'm not
Cool.
watching on YouTube, so there is at least one which is watching, and kudos to you. No,
you
but
very
I was saying about the test drivers. I remember in past years, I was speaking with some, Ferrari engineers, from the racing department, and they, for example, everybody was, the ones I spoke with, they were all praising, for example, Kimi. Kimi, they said he was an excellent, test driver because he could really, tell you when he pitted, he could really tell you how the car behaved before watching, the data. So it's a different skill set. It's something completely different.
Yep.
I dealt with test drivers on motorcycles, and I remember there was one. We were in Valencia testing a bike, and he came in the pit. It was a brand new bike. It was next year's bike. And he pitted, and the engine wasn't working too well. It broke down basically, and he said, it's a bent valve. That's what he said when he dismounted, from the bike. And it took 4 days to figure out that it was a bent. It took 4 days because they had to ship the bike, back to the factory, disassemble the engine, and find the bent valve. But that guy wasn't even close to the timing that the riders were making. So it's sensibility, something different. I don't know. It's different. So
Yeah, I agree, and the point I'm making with Rosberg is that this is one of his skill sets, is being able to feel the car, and take on the technical data. He's very technical with the data as well, more than most, I would say. And those two things just help him. Now he's definitely fast because he's out qualified Lewis this year. So on one lap, there's no problem when you give him all the boost and the tools. He's there with everybody. So again, and I'd just point out that I don't think this is a bad thing that he suffers the pressure like this, because Vettel does as well.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that, from that point of view, Schumacher was the top, at the top of the chain, from that point of view, and Sebastian is a really good second right now. Is literally a pain in the ass for his engineers. It's mind-boggling, I spoke with some guys that say, that they usually have the the after race or after qualifying briefing, and they used to be X amount of time. Now that Sebastian is over there, they never know when it's going to end, because it's incredible. So it's
there's a lot of data.
Yeah,
very Senna-esque, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Mansell actually as well, or probably not so much Mansell.
Yeah. Can I make a special mention to Maldonado, which managed not to crash yet again, even if he tried. Yeah, it was close, but
it was.
He was close, but good job to Maldonado.
Yep. Always kudos for finishing a race, Maldonado.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Getting the maximum out of his 30 million.
Yeah. Come on, I mean, you got to give the guy some credit. I mean, he has been racing with a lot of pressure, being the guy which, usually...
It always reminds me of Jacques Villeneuve,
yes.
who went to Spa, and he was determined to go through a Rouge flat. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is in the days when the cars were really powerful, and he crashed twice.
Yes.
In practice, trying to go through it flat.
You're talking about Gilles or Jacques?
Jacques.
Okay, yeah. Because Gilles was another one like that. His father, Jacques' father was another one like that. But actually, that was different, because Enzo Ferrari was at the helm of Ferrari. And he was actually, he wasn't happy, but he couldn't understand that. He said, those cars, I want someone which crashes the cars, because I want to know what the problem is in the car. So if it crashes once, next race is not going to crash it. So it's poor Gilles.
Right,
I mean,
let me just. Yeah, absolutely. I really liked him. There was one race in particular. I think it was 79 Montreal. Could be 78. I can't remember. But it was just the most incredible race, and especially when they had such massive back tyres back then as well.
Yeah.
Right, so there was loads of power going down everywhere.
Talking about tires, I saw there was some talks about increasing the rim diameter. I think now is 15 inches. They were talking about pulling the diameter to 17 inches and have a smaller shoulder, like the one that you can actually see on the cars. And I think that might be interesting, because right now on especially in F1 cars, the tires are a big part of the suspension. The fact that they're full of air and they're so big, they basically act as as part of the suspension. Now, if you have smaller tires, I mean, if the shoulder is smaller, you have more rigid tires, and you're then forced to rethink the old suspension stuff, because it has to absorb a lot of things that the tire used to. So that might be interesting too. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the 2017 car looks amazing. I mean,
I actually haven't seen that.
Or 2016. I can't remember which year it is. It might be 2017. I'm sure it's 2017 car, yeah. And they've redesigned loads of parts on it. So the front wing is now swept. The rear wing is lower. Tyres are wider. There's more air down below, so I think they're going to do something with the diffuser. to make that better. So these are all the changes that are coming through to try and speed the lap times up by 6 seconds.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean they should be. I mean, I think it should be great because I think we need more rear wing. You know, there's too much front wing going on, and the cars are becoming a little bit too tight for setup.
I don't know. I mean, I would actually love to have a smaller wings, but
Yeah. Well, I'm always in this idea of how close you can follow. I mean, that's what stops the overtaking is the wings.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, the bigger the wings you have, the more problematic overtaking will be. So that's why I would love to have actually smaller wings, and you have more mechanical grip. You would see the car sliding a little bit more. So, but I don't know. I mean, they wouldn't be as fast as they are right now, and I think that's the biggest problem. I mean, F1 has to be fast. That's one of their mantra. So
You can easily do this by ground effect.
yeah, they could do that
Right?
too. Yeah.
So they actually have to have wings. But I mean, I think if you're running a car, then presumably you're going to make sure the wake, is disturbed as much as possible for the people behind, right? And that's going to be one of the design features of the car.
Hmm.
So
Well, yeah.
I think themselves are doing this, and the only way to get rid of it, as I say, is to either suspension or ground effect. Effect is not really going to. I suppose it would. Yeah, ground effect would do it. We should be able to follow close. And then
Well,
back to allow people to tow. Right.
yeah.
So that's another. But there you go. But yeah, in Mexico, I didn't like the circuit overall myself. I don't think it's going to have many classic races. I liked the stadium section. But
Yeah, the stadium section was really brilliant. I agree with you. It was really cool.
But again, I thought it's like if you think about turn one at Austin and how wide that is, it's a tight corner. They could have made the entry into that corner a lot wider and had people going around the outside. I mean, that compromises the next corner hugely, and that's obviously why they didn't do it. But the fact that they're controlling the pace of the cars through that section so tightly.
Well, they have.
It's not what Formula One's about. Formula One cars shouldn't be constricted that way.
Well,
And that's the same thing they did in Indianapolis. Oh, sorry, it's a bugbear.
No, yeah, they have problems with homologation of the circuit. I mean, if you don't have a wide enough escape area, you can basically won't get the circuit homologated. So
Yeah.
a lot of tight corners are not because of they want to make a tight corner. It's just they don't have enough space on the outside to have an escape route for the cars. So yeah, that's a bummer, especially on circuits like the one in Mexico, which was based on a pre-existing circuit, or even city circuits. That's another big issue. So
Yeah, well, it comes down to this top speed again. All right, if your car is being limited, if the top speed of your car is being limited by drag, okay, then you need not to have so many tight corners. Basically, that's what it comes down to. And they don't do that. They want these unlimited drag circuits where you can get up to these incredible high speeds, and yet they still want to put in corners which you need shitloads of downforce to get around. Because otherwise you wear the tyres out. Sliding is what causes tyres to wear out. The more downforce you put on the car, the less tyre wear there is. So you're fighting against two competing things which can never be brought into thing unless you're at a circuit like Monza, okay, where you've got these chicanes which you just no amount of downforce is going to get you through the chicanes much faster.
yeah.
Because they're too slow.
No, you're totally right. You're right. On the other hand, this is where the fun is. You got to have a long straight and then a really slow corner, because this is where you can actually try and overtake people. So this is where the fun actually starts.
Yeah.
So
And
it's a bummer.
respect, yeah, and respect to Tilke in that way, because at least he has tried to put that into some of his circuits. Abu Dhabi, and
Yeah,
it's
he
a good
tried
circuit because he's got that.
No, he tried to. I mean, his first circuits were way worse. I mean, Hungaroring is a pain in the ass. I mean, that
Oh
was, I
yeah,
think,
yeah,
was the first circuit. He improved. I mean, I got to give the guy credit. But still, there is something which is. I mean, even Austin, they got that beautiful part, with the long sweeps. That's beautiful to watch. It is, and
yeah.
and I think it's beautiful to drive into. But forget trying to overtake someone over there. I mean, it is simply not possible at all.
Yeah, yeah. With that, I agree with that particular section as well, because straight after it, there's a little bit of a straight, and the next corner is a second gear corner, not a first gear corner.
Yeah.
So even if you do make a mistake through that S section, then you don't, it doesn't matter too much, because no one can really overtake you into the next corner unless you've made a horrendous mistake.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. I mean, unless you actually run wide, nobody is able to overtake you, even if you miss the first apex. So,
well, again,
but,
even if you run wide, because of course there's no curbs
yeah,
through that section, doesn't matter. Rosberg drove off the track,
yeah,
didn't he? Right. Well, he should have lost the race, dude. But because he had a few second lead, they couldn't penalise him for driving off the track.
yeah.
And that's nuts. And that has come into Formula One in the Tilke years.
Well, anyway,
Anyway,
any more
indeed.
points? Because I think we're hitting
Yeah,
the
you're also cracking up a little bit, so I'll end up and just say thank you, everybody. Thank you, our viewer. Much appreciated. Please come in if you want next week, and we'd love to see you again.
Yeah,
Thanks,
take care.
everybody.
Bye.